All right. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully, you're doing pretty well. Thanks for joining for today's CDW Nutanix Mixology Bootcamp. So, we're going to do a fun demo today, do a quick overview of Nutanix. And to start it off, we're going to look at doing a cocktail for it because I'd like to kind of get the fun part first, and then you can sip one of the drinks as we go through today. So, agenda, if you have your packages from Bar From Afar that should have been shipped over to you, feel free to have those handy. We're going to be doing the Gin Fizz today from Greg from Bar From Afar, who's going to be joining us here in a couple seconds. And you shouldn't need anything other than a pair of scissors, from what I've been told, to make the cocktail. Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you. Feel free to introduce yourself. Looking forward to hearing about the Gin Fizz and starting it off. And then I will jump into our CW overview and Nutanix technology presentation and wrap it up with a demo for everyone today that people can follow along with, or feel free just to watch.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Ryan. My name is Greg O'Brien. I am the CEO slash founder at Bar From Afar, a little startup company that started in 2020. Basically, we build cocktail kits right to your door, as many of you have experienced. So today we are going to build maybe one of my favorite drinks. It's been on our menu since day one. It's arguably one of the prettiest cocktails, and in my opinion, one of the tastiest cocktails. So the Gin Fizz has been around for a long, long time, and is very, very simple, but it follows the perfect fundamentals of building a cocktail, and that is balance. We can all put ingredients together and say we built a cocktail, but where the real finesse comes in, it's actually balancing out all of the flavors. And when I say that, I mean acidity, fat, and aromatics. They all need to come together in perfect harmony to create a enjoyable drinking experience. So when we came up with the concept for Bar From Far, we really wanted to make sure that we were including absolutely everything in these packages so that you could build these cocktails at home without any fancy bar equipment. So we're going to go over some of the things that you would have found in your package and how we're going to use them. First off, you would have found a lot of your garnishes and maybe even a QR code in each of these mason jars. And they are great for transporting all of these little ingredients. This is also going to double as your cocktail shaker today. The other piece of equipment that you will find in every single Bar From Afar package is this little red Solo cup. Now, we probably all have either fond memories or terrible memories of these, either in high school or in university. Normally, they had a jello substance of some sort in them that you tried to slurp out, and the mornings after normally hurt. So the way this works is the cup filled to the very, very top is a 2-ounce measure. Now, there's a little line about halfway down the cup that is about my finger width from the bottom. That is actually a 1/2 ounce pour. So anything in between a 1/2 ounce and a 2-ounce pour, you're just going to use the 1/2 ounce measure and multiply it by what you need. So we do have a couple different measurements in the Gin Fizz that call for an ounce. So the way we will get that with only having a 1/2 ounce and a 2-ounce measure, we're just going to multiply the 1/2 ounce times 2 to get our 1 ounce of both simple syrup and lemon juice. Some of the other ingredients that you'll need from your kit to execute this cocktail is your little bag of these dehydrated roses. They are edible. They're little mini Damascus rosebuds, but they are safe to eat. I don't highly recommend it. They smell better than they taste. Most importantly, we've got our mini bottle of gin. Now, if you did receive a 0 proof, your non-alcoholic spirit will be in a pouch that looks like this and labeled appropriately with 0% gin. And finally, the only two things I should say that you will need to build this cocktail today are a little pair of scissors or big pair of scissors and a little bit of ice. We need ice to build cocktails. So without further ado, let's get right to it. I do love hearing Ryan say that I like knowing that my job is the fun part of everybody else's jobs. I'm always a comic or entertainment relief through some of these conferences and Zoom calls. So first off, this is going to be the easiest measurement of the afternoon. You're going to find either your mini bottle of gin or your pouch marked 0% gin, and you're simply going to take the lid off, or if you are using the non-alcoholic version, you're just going to, you know what, let's actually start with that so that people can kind of see how to get into these pouches. So what we'll do is we're going to start with the pouch that has a sticker of a Burn Bray egg on it, and has a Bar From Afar logo on the other side. And the best way to manage these pouches is just to cut under the seal line, just right across there. And then between your two fingers, I'm using my middle finger and my thumb. I just kind of snap my fingers, and that should open your pouch relatively easily. And then you are able to just pour. So we're going to do a half ounce of your egg white. I will say that my squad is pretty good about measuring, so I'm not. Your other cocktail, I believe, is a smoked old fashioned. So there'd be none of these other ingredients that you're going to double for your second cocktail. So if you don't really feel like measuring, you're safe just to kind of add your pouch right to your shaker jar. So now that we've got the egg white in, I've done a little demo on how to get into the pouches. We'll go back to the first step, which I was talking about. You'll grab either your mini bottle of gin or the pouch that is marked 0% gin, and just add that to your shaker. Next off, we're going to do a 1 ounce pour from the pouch marked lemon. And again, I'm just going to cut under the seal line, and then using my fingers, just kind of snap that pouch open. And we're going to measure a 1 ounce portion of this. So just going back to what I said earlier, we're going to do a half ounce once, and then we're going to do a half ounce again. So you can see I do have a little bit left in there. So if you really want to be as accurate as possible, just follow along with the measurements. And last, so 1 ounce pour of any sort of citrus in a cocktail is a lot. So what a nice rule of thumb as a starting point when you're trying to balance out maybe a cocktail that you're working on is try and balance it out with equal amount sweetener. So that doesn't always necessarily need to be a simple syrup. You can have some fun with it. You can use honey, maple syrup, agave nectar. All of these things are great substitute for just straight simple syrup if you have them around. So I'm going to cut under the seal line again, just snap with my fingers. I'm going to open that, and we did 1 ounce of lemon juice, so we're going to do 1 ounce of simple syrup. And there we go. So the next step is a very important step if you're ever building cocktails with egg whites. We're going to do what's called a dry shake, and a dry shake just means no ice. So what the idea here is to really froth up and aerate that egg white so that it creates this beautiful boozy foam. And you can shake this for as long and hard as you want. The longer and harder you shake it, the frothier and thick your foam will be in the end. There is a cocktail called the Ramos Gin Fizz, which is literally shaken for 10 minutes. I've never successfully executed it because really, who's got 10 minutes to shake a cocktail? But the end result is pretty aesthetically pleasing. They use a little bit of heavy cream to kind of stabilize your egg white foam. And some of the stuff I've seen, people have managed to get their egg white foam to sit maybe a couple inches off the top of the glass. So we're going to be able to get our foam a little bit over the rim, but we're not going for the Ramos style today, anyways, because I've only got 15 minutes in total, and we're already running out. So, anyways, that looks pretty good. The beautiful thing about the mason jars, you can literally watch that cocktail froth up in front of you. I'm pretty happy with the way that looks, nice and frothy. So what we're going to do now, every cocktail needs water and dilution, and for two reasons, really. One, who really wants to drink a warm cocktail? But the other thing is the dilution factor. And diluting your cocktail, everybody's like, oh, that doesn't sound great. But water is needed to bring all of the flavors that you're trying to incorporate together and work in harmony. Think about it kind of as cooking. If you have like mirepoix with your onions, celery, and carrots, you smell those on the table, and sure, they smell like carrots, onions, and celery. But if you add a little bit of heat to them, and you put a little butter in there, the smells change altogether. A little bit of heat. So water does a similar action as heat does for cooking. So once we have that, we shake it down for another 10 seconds. Now we're going to strain our cocktail. And the way we strain the cocktail using the shaker jar is I've got the cover, and I just leave it off just enough so that I can keep the ice in the shaker and strain the cocktail into the glass. So you can kind of see that cocktail. It'll take a few minutes. It'll start to separate. And now it is time for the fizz part of your gin fizz. So everybody has a little can of soda. We're just going to pop that open, and we're going to add this slowly, and we're going to watch the foam come up the side of the glass. So I would say you're probably going to add about half of your can of soda. And as you go in the middle, you'll see that that starts to come up. It'll start to foam, but it won't come over the top. There we go. That's as far as I'm going to go on camera. Finally, just like you eat with your eyes first, you also drink with your eyes first. So we're going to add our Damascus roses. So I've got 3 of these, and I'm just going to place them into the foam of the cocktail. They'll stand up nicely there. The cocktail's really starting to separate in this glass, and it looks dynamite. And there, folks, we have the Bar from Afar Gin Fizz.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. That looks really good.
Yeah.
I don't think mine's going to look anything like that.
It's all about the glassware, friend. It's all about the glassware, and I'm lucky I have good. I have lots to choose from.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. I hope everyone enjoyed the cocktail here. We'll kind of jump back into the rest of the presentation in the demo. If anyone has any questions for Greg or any of the other cocktails, feel free to post them in the chat, as I'm sure he'll be able to read them and possibly answer later on.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Just going to reshare out the presentation deck for everyone here. So in the chat, I have posted today's demo sign up for it as well. We're doing things a little bit different today, where we are going to be using the Nutanix test drive. So this is free for all Nutanix current customers, potential customers, or anyone that's just really wanting to take a look at what the environment, what Nutanix looks like, what it can do. For it. So if you can go to nutanix.com/one-platform, the specific demo that we're going to be looking at today is the build a private cloud. So you'll see the screen here, put in your work email and click continue, and you should get an email notification of it starting up. Once you do receive the email, this is kind of what you're going to see on the next page. It will be an access test drive to log into your own personalized Nutanix demo environment. It has guided walkthroughs, but also it is completely accessible for you to jump around and just click into anything that you want for your own personal driving. For it. You'll have it for roughly about 24 or 48 hours. You can extend it out as well. There is a little bit of a delay, so if you can, please do jump on there if you do want to follow along. However, I will be walking through the demo later today as we go through. So a little bit about myself here. So my name is Ryan Beecham. I am a senior solution architect for CDW. I'm based in Vancouver, so while we're just doing the cocktail hour, it's still morning for me. So I got mine set for later on this afternoon that I'm going to make. So I was taking my notes from Greg here as he was going through. Been in IT for 18 years in a varying different capacities, but nationally I specialize in HCI and EUC, which is end user computing, and VDI. with Nutanix being one of my primary technologies that I lead from CDW across the country. When I'm not working, I live in Vancouver, so you got the typical like hiking and camping enthusiast. I travel. I'm off to Dublin and Italy later on this year, and I brew my own beer. So any beer questions, feel free to put them into the chat. One of these next demos that we do in boot camps, I'm gonna hopefully get us a beer event that goes through and move away from some of the cocktails. Coming to CDW here, I do want to highlight a big portion. So where I sit in the technical pre-sales side. So for the CDW solution architects, this is your value add. So I am not a salesperson. I am fully devoted to the technology and where the benefits are. So regardless of what product we're going to talk about today is Nutanix. But each SA that within CDW usually has 10 plus years of experience in different varying aspects. So some people are more specialized in networking, others security, others cloud. So there is over 100 of us across the country, and we are complete no charge access for you. So feel free to reach out to any of your SAs, and you can reach out to them through your sales executive to really have just a vendor agnostic chat and really deep dive into what we're doing. So our SAs are knowledgeable on different vendors. So across the landscape, training, we run POCs, we're the ones that build out the bombs, do the strategy within the companies to decide what is the best fit. And think of us as an extension of your team. We're here to help you in any aspect. So today, like I said, is going to be mainly it's Nutanix. We're going to talk about the HCI platform and what it looks like. So Nutanix is, for me, it's that path to the cloud and that digital modernization. So Nutanix falls into the phase one of modernizing your infrastructure, going from your classical 3-tier into small form factor, easy to scale, easy to manage. But that doesn't mean that's where Nutanix stops. Nutanix really does the full gambit of going into your automation and integrating private clouds with the end goal of really unifying your hybrid and multi-cloud operations. Now, phase 2 and phase 3, I've seen companies mix and match these quite regularly, where you might be jumping down to the integrating your public and private cloud before you even hit the automation process. That is completely up to most organizations, but Nutanix can help you go through that, and we'll touch upon that a little bit, but primarily we're going to focus on phase 1 here. So Nutanix as a one platform for any application. So within their stack, Nutanix over 10 years ago was your private cloud, which is with really your private data center. They're software only, so they can integrate with any of the OEM vendors, and they're open to any different hypervisor, whether it's VMware, it's AHV, or Hyper-V. It gives you a flexibility of choice so that as whatever your adoption rate and what you're comfortable with using, well, you can go through and do that. So at the bottom layer, you're going to see AOS, Prism, AHV, and now actually Carbon as well. So AOS is your Acropolis operating system. That is your software-defined storage. So that is quote unquote secret sauce of Nutanix. That's how you can have four nodes, 3 nodes pooled together and run all of your infrastructure on top of these. Prism is your centralized management. So as you expand out from maybe 1 data center to 2 data centers to a hybrid cloud running workloads in the cloud through, say, like Nutanix clusters even, this gives you your centralized management. Your AHV is your hypervisor. So just like VMware and their ESXi platform, Nutanix has its own hypervisor. It is feature parity with anything that VMware is doing today, and it is bundled in for free with your Nutanix purchases. Carbon is the newest addition into the line. It's, well, newer. It's been around for a little bit, but it is the containerization and Kubernetes platform that is free and built into as well. So as companies are adopting the containerization strategy, you have a platform that is instantly ready for you to enable, and it is a one-click enable for you to go through and use. As you start moving up the stack, you're going to get into your automation, you're consolidating your data with through files and objects, security. At CDW, we can't not talk about security. It is first and foremost where all of our solutions end up being centralized around. And they have flow. This is your micro-segmentation and extending your network from on-prem into the cloud so that you can have your virtual private networks. And then enabling business continuity with Xi Leap, which is their disaster as a service. So building out the slide here, this is Nutanix's vision of where they see themselves as a company. So they are your seamless hybrid cloud operations, whether you want to run your workloads on-prem or in the cloud, and regardless of what workloads. So whether it's VDI, it's databases. Database has Era, which if you have any database administrators, they would probably love to have a chat with one-click provisioning of databases, lifecycle management, being able to snapshot and clone databases with 2 clicks. That's an entire another conversation that will probably take an hour to do the demo, and we'll probably look at setting that up later this year. The core is your cloud native and enterprise applications and your Robo and Edge. So with Nutanix, they have some really neat small form factor servers that are great for Robo and Edge for branch offices, or in the most unique use cases of, say, like wind turbines or out at energy dams where you're needing like something super small to run the on-prem infrastructure. Dev and test and analytics, there is platforms that are completely compatible. And as you see at the bottom too, there's the slide deck of all the different vendors. So whether it's AWS, it's Azure, or it's Google, there is integrations to varying degrees of with the Nutanix platform. Nutanix clusters for Azure should be coming out later this year, early next year, as most companies here in Canada are looking more to Azure, but AWS is usually where developers go. There's complete integrations for a cluster on that side. Now, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, where does HCI fit? And where does Nutanix fit? I probably have this conversation at least 3-4 times a day, and I can safely and confidently say that regardless of whether you're in energy, technology, public sector, or retail, HCI has a place. It is your generalized workloads first, but it also has your specialized applications. They have reference architecture for Splunk, the reference architecture for Oracle and Red Hat, OpenShift clusters for Kubernetes, VDI. It can be a backup platform. It is a DR platform as well to help consolidate some of your DR plays. The use cases are really endless for it. So Nutanix solution, I kind of break them into 3 different topics. So there's the Acropolis and AHV. That is your turnkey infrastructure that combines your compute, storage, and networking all into a single box. So moving away from the SANs, the fiber channel switching and storage networks, connecting to your blade centers or your pizza box servers. Let's collapse all of that by a single server with a bunch of disks, whether it's SSDs, it's hybrid with SSDs and HDDs for it, or even going to the extreme of Optane and NVMe. to get the 500,000 IOPS per node for those like super mission critical servers. Then you get Prism, which is your like one click or one management to rule them all for it. So it has your capacity planning, it has the multi-site management in it as well. For it. And then you can start, that's where you start to look at some of the automation side. And then on the far right, we have COM, which is your blueprints for doing self-service application deployment and your true automation. So you can integrate your Terraform, your Ansible into COM to do deployments of not just on-prem, but also into the cloud. But today in the demo is going to be focused solely on the Acropolis and the AHV. So we've talked about AHV. We can't not talk about, okay, what do you get with your free virtualization? So this is a native enterprise class virtualization platform. It was at one point based on the KVM free hypervisor that's out there. Since then, it has evolved to have all the features and functionalities that you would look at, plus adding in the simplicity of lifecycle management, doing upgrades for firmware, hypervisor, with single clicks that is non-disruptive to your environment. So this is enterprise ready. You get your virtual networking, your software-defined networking, business continuity DR through protection domains, replication, where we can do near sync, async, complete active clusters as well. It's really a pick your poison for how deep you want to go, because their hypervisor will accommodate this. So traditionally, this is what your data center in the past 10 years has probably looked like. You're running your applications on virtualization, probably ESXi. You have your servers that you're hosting. They're connecting to intermediary switch for your SAN fabric. And then you have a lot of storage controllers and connected to a bunch of disks. That could be a couple different arrays, or it could be a couple different SANs all connected through. So there's a lot of extra network cabling, a lot of hardware for lift and shifting if you need to do upgrades. So what we want to do is kind of collapse all of that together and allow you to sit there and focus on what is primary concern for organizations today, and that is your apps and your data. Like what you want to do is you want to take the public cloud type of mentality of, we don't care what the infrastructure is, it should be as invisible as possible and as easy to use as possible. And that's where Nutanix really does shine for being able to integrate all of your functions. It's a scale out type of solution. So buy for what you need today. If you need more compute in there, you just add on an extra node. And it's, again, 3 clicks to go through an add. I'll do a quick demo of what adding a new node would look like here coming up. And also it simplifies your management. So before, you would be on the left-hand side here, be logging into your storage portal. You'd be logging into your ESXi. You'd be logging into all your different monitoring systems. Well, on the Nutanix side, they've included all of that into their Prism console so that it allows you to see everything at a glance. It allows you to start generalizing your staff into focusing less on day-to-day activities of maintaining hardware and more day-to-day activities of focusing on your apps and what's happening with the data and troubleshooting the problems to really increase performance across the organization. So like I was saying, this was your typical environment. So you have your self-service, you have your server environment, where you're logging into your ILOs, you're looking at your apps for app presentation, you got your security suite, virtualization platform with VMware, your backup, and your storage. So what if Nutanix has taken the approach of, let's consolidate all of these into one view. So you log in the morning, and this is what you're seeing. You're able to see what your cluster is doing, what its performance is, any alerts that are going across, what your efficiencies are for trying to figure out your capacity planning, if there's any latency issues, any IOPS issues. This is all customizable through different widgets and compared to for whatever you want to look. So your DBAs who are using this platform might have a very different login. It's all customizable for that user's login. And I'm really just going to hone in on the simplified managed maintenance and upgrades. So we talked about it before where with your SAN environment, you're going to have to be doing the upgrading your controller heads, upgrading the software on it. And then you're going to also have to upgrade your switching to the latest version. And then you're upgrading your VMware stack and then the vCenter. Well, that's a lot of single points of management. So what if we could tell you that let's give you something that's easy to use, that's intelligent, that it knows all the full stack that's in there, and it can scale out from upgrading a single node all the way through your entire environment. So that's where Nutanix's lifecycle management really kind of comes in. It takes all of the dependency management guesswork out of it. It does it all for you. It goes across all of your different OEMs. So regardless of what platform you're buying, so if you're buying a Nutanix NX platform or you're doing HPE, you can have the lifecycle management through a couple clicks, do the upgrades to your firmware, the AOS, which is your software, and your AHV, while maintaining the fact that you can do this during 2 o'clock on a Tuesday for it. So no more doing upgrades at like 3 a.m. at night. I think we've all been there at one point in time, or if you haven't, I'm very glad to say that you're never going to have to do that again, because that day and age is done as far as I'm concerned. Like, you don't do it in the public cloud. We don't need to do that in the data center anymore. So I hope some of you had a chance to maybe quickly sign up for the demo for it, and you might have maybe got your emails already. But today we're going to cover a couple things. So we're going to cover how to spin up a virtual machine in AHV. We're going to cover storage and network configurations, where they are, what they look like, how to access it. We're going to cover Lifecycle Manager for it. So this is the adding new clusters. This is going to be doing your upgrades. We'll go walk through that. We'll go through monitoring and managing the environment. So that will give you insight into what a day-to-day activity would look like, looking at some of the alerting, looking at some of the environment to see what your your applications are doing, what your VMs are doing. And then finally, we'll go through a data protection scenario where, like, everyone should have at least snapshots being configured, replication, possibly to a DR site. So I'll show how easy that is with a couple clicks of creating a protection domain within Nutanix. Before we jump into that, I'm going to kind of open it up really quick for some of the questions that have been coming out here. If no one has any questions, though, I will jump right into the next portion. I wanted to spend more time on the demo today rather than bore everyone with slides. And hopefully your drinks have gone down very easily with the presentation of the slide deck. Hear anyone jumping in? I'm going to jump right in here. So this is where the Nutanix One platform that I talked about earlier. So this is what you should see. I got my email, it's already in here. Jumping into it, you might be able to see, you might be on this screen right now. It looks like I still am, where my test drive is actually still provisioning. I did unfortunately not pray to the demo gods today when I decided to reactivate my test drive. But just walking through it, so just so you kind of know whenever you have this access, other available tests as well. So today we're focusing on just the regular Nutanix test drive for the private cloud. Other ones to look at is your ERA. This is for your database operations. So if you have any DBAs, might be a great one to take a look at. Flow test drive. So that's your excuse me, your microsegmentation for it, and protecting and cyber threats. So anyone on your security team, that might be a great demo to take a look at. Another one is clusters on AWS. That's able to show what a environment would look like on AWS. So instead of going into EC2 t-shirt sizes of virtualization and going cloud native, you can run a Nutanix cluster up in the cloud and leverage the pooling of resources. So you're not going to have some of that micro waste that goes into the environment. If you're not wanting AWS, you have clusters on Azure here as well on the bottom. And at that point, I'm going to go to my backup environment. I'm very happy that we had a backup environment going. In and log in. So this would be what your Nutanix initial environment would be. So this is the Prism console. So I'm going to enter in my admin, and I've got my password right here. So this is what would happen.
Good old cut and paste, Ryan. Good idea.
Cut and paste. There we are. Try to make it a little bit easy. So this is what your initial activities would look like in the morning when you have a Nutanix cluster. So first thing you do, this is probably going to be your, like as a sysadmin, this is going to be your home screen. I would basically live in this screen in a previous life for it. So you're going to see at an initial first glance is what your hypervisor is running Nutanix AHV over here. It's going to show your build number. It's going to show what you have a Prism Central. It's connected, so we'll be able to launch into that as well. I'm going to launch that and give it a time because it's a demo environment, so it sometimes takes a little while. Across here, you're going to see your cluster-wide IOPS. So obviously, we don't have a lot running, so I only have 194 IOPS here, but you'll be able to see your graph, and this is your clear indication of, is there any issues in your environment? You got your bandwidth, or you got your cluster-wide latency. More important ones, I'll usually move these up to the top. Is what is my total cluster usage as far as the CPU gigahertz? Am I getting into the red? Am I hitting like 80, 90%? If I see that anything higher than 80, and I know that my norm is usually about 50 to 60, that's usually indication of, hey, something might be happening, and maybe I should go take a look at the VMs. Next is going to be your cluster memory usage. One's pretty straightforward. Once memory is provisioned, it starts eating it up. I don't think I need to explain that too much. And then the other part here is your health. So you'll be able to see that, we have a couple critical issues here, and this is where they currently are. So there's nothing on the disks, we have nothing on the VM storage containers, but we do have something on the hosts. And or on the other side here, you can see, oh, well, it's because it's using a default password. Best practices, Nutanix is going to keep you as secure as possible. So if you have default passwords that are out there, it is going to yell at you until you get it changed, because default passwords are out there in every knowledge base article that you can find, and hackers and malicious actors will attempt to use those. So please do always change your default passwords. We'll also go in, you can see your events. So we had 77 events. It was last updated a couple minutes ago. And then we got the VMs. You also get your storage, so you can see how much storage. So this demo environment has just under 40 terabytes. Actually, it'll be over 40 terabytes because that's in TIBs for it. And then the number of VMs. So up at the top, everything here is easily laid out in a click. You don't have to go too far. You can also go here and use global search. So if I did go into VMs, I can just type in there and it's going to take me right into the VM tab. And it's going to show me, okay, what do we have that's in here? So I can take a look at the overview. This will tell me how many different VMs I have, how many are on, how many are off, what my provisioned virtual CPUs is, and what their utilization is. If you try to do this in Hyper-V, good luck trying to get some of this information out. VMware is a little bit better. AHV really just brings it up to the forefront to really make it easy to use. So one of the tasks that we talked about is let's create a VM. So let's see how easy this is to go through and what it looks like from what you may or may not be used to using today. So I'm going to call it CDW 1. So test. I'm going to put it into my local time zone. I'm going to put 4 CPUs, number of cores, pretty standard. 8 gigs of memory that's in here. And choose your BIOS for legacy versus UEFI. And then your disks. So this is probably the one part that's a little bit different here, is whenever you're creating a new VM, you're going to be adding a disk for it. So we'll create a disk, and instead we're going to be able to allocate just a blank storage container. You can clone from an ADSF file, or I usually go, everyone usually has a Windows validated image that we're going to be building upon. So we're going to do a image service, and I'm going to choose one of our environments. So I'm going to choose a Windows 2016 server, and it's going to have, you can see here, it's already grayed out because it knows that it's going to be 40 gigs, and index, we're going to, it's going to be status for next available. You can change what the type is. 9.9 times out of 10, it's going to be your SCSI drive. We'll add that in. You'll see that we have a CD-ROM drive, and now we have a disk drive. It's in here, and you'll be able to upgrade or update this depending on your image that you're cloning from. Next, you can't create a VM without having a network card. So next thing we want to do is we want to add in a network card. So you'll see here there's 2 subnets that are already created. It's in here. We'll create a second one later on. I'm going to create it on the primary. Whether you want your network to be connected or disconnected when you are kicking this up or starting it up for the first time, sometimes you do want them disconnected. I'm just going to leave it connected here. Within this primary subnet, we do have a private IP assignment. It'll tell you how many free IPs that you even have, and how many are kind of in the pool. And so you can also assign it with a static IP if you really want. I'm just going to leave it with HCP today. We'll click add. Now we have a network adapter, and we also have a disk. We've configured the CPU and the memory. Last thing you want, sometimes you may to pin VMs to certain hosts due to licensing requirements, or maybe you have an application that you want the 2 servers to never run on the same. So you can set an affinity rule. Most people using VMware at one point in time probably set affinity rules. So Nutanix has the exact same in their AHV. Hence the feature parity for it. I'm going to click save, and it has received an operation to create the VM. And if I take a look up at the top here, you'll see the little dial. It'll tell us what is actually happening right now. So we'll wait for that to happen, go through. Well, that's creating. Let's out. See that there it is. The green check mark has appeared. It has created my VM. Within your VM now, we're going to be click into it. See that, yep, it has all the right information. You can edit it however you need to. And if I scroll down here, which by the way, I am actually running this environment through Nutanix's VDI frame console. Everything you're seeing today is actually through a VDI session for it. So you'll see at the bottom, I got latency requirements, and that's showing me what my performance is looking like. So instead of the usually right click, you'll see manage guest tools. You'll be able to, with a single click, you can do a click power on. Let's take a look at the top here. It's received the input to the power on. We'll wait for it to go through and complete. And the green checkbox tells me that it has launched. So we're able to do a snapshot. We can migrate, clone as well. So for these, like normally in VMware or something like that, you do right click and might have to go into a couple. So Nutanix has really abstracted all that to give it that one click kind of, it's right there front of screen for touch. I'm going to launch the console just to kind of show you what's happening. And look at that. We have a virtual machine that is booting up, and it's asking me to go through and configure it. So I'm not going to go through and look at that anymore. Instead, we're going to jump right back up to the home screen here. And this time we're going to jump into, let's go take a look at our storage. So we talked a little bit about the performance, what we got. We can see what our deduplication rates are for it, whether we have, excuse me, whether we have dedupe and compression turned on. Once we hit 5 nodes, you'll be able to go to an EC2 erasure coding, configuration, which can save you another like 30% storage. So get the same type of reductions that you can get off a typical SAN. The way it works is a little bit different than a SAN. SANs work on RAID. Nutanix works on a replication factor. So at any point in time, you're always going to have, if you have an RF2, you're going to have 2 copies of your data for it. So if something fails, it will automatically be able to restart the VM on another host for it. And every time that a write is sent to the host, to the initial host, a second write is sent to the second host to copy that data. So it's always going to be kept up to date for it. And the way that works is and that's also why we want usually a 10 gig networking for it or higher on the back end, just because we're collapsing the storage network and the VM network, usually all onto the same network cards. Now let's jump in here to take a look at the quick diagrams and go through. So you're gonna be able to see a little bit more information of, like how much is used, how much is there logically, it's your like total physical capacity. So you would have heard me say that we had 38 terabytes of usable, or TB of usable. Well, that's where that RF2 comes in, is there's actually 76 TB of raw configured in this storage pool 1. So we have a storage pool, which typically will have one storage pool for a Nutanix cluster, and then we'll have storage containers within a storage pool for it. And that difference is kind of like, like we're gonna configure one large pool, and then within it, we're going to create our smaller little LUNs that maybe it's your, you want your Linux VMs all in a certain container. You want your some other application VMs in a different container. Maybe your flow is going to go over somewhere else for a self-service container. So it just kind of logically separates them all out. Now, looking here, I just realized that I'm starting to run out of time. Apologies on this one. I'm going to start going through a little bit here. So you're creating a storage container. So let's say I want to do a CDW SQL storage. So I'm going to go out of my regular storage pool here. Click on advanced settings. You know, you can put a reserved capacity. You can put an advertised capacity, so you can start limiting as well. You can set your deduplication and erasure coding in here as well, so that it's very configurable from a storage container standpoint. You can do file system whitelists. So this comes into that security kind of first and foremost. So I'm going to go through and create this here. Can't have spaces. And just like that, we now have a brand new container that we would be able to start provisioning SQL data into and sectioning that off, putting our own different policies on it. So very simple, very easy. Again, like we're all in that same platform. You're not having to jump into another console to do the storage administration tasks. Now, if we go in the same to the networking, let's jump into the network side. This is a great GUI for it. So if I start taking a look here, I'm going to take a look at our CDW demo. In this case, I can see exactly the pathway that's going to be, which is very helpful in troubleshooting for it. So I can see that I'm actually going to be on DM3 POC 102, so node 3. And the network card that is actually active here is the Ethernet 5 with that's the active one. You'll see at the back here, there's a dotted line. That's the passive. So Nutanix works in an active passive. So in the event of one failing, it's going to automatically fail over. And then it will go into an unknown switch. So whatever our top of rack switching is going to be, whether it's your a Cisco or Dell or Aruba, Arista, regardless what that's where the pathway is going to be. Now, if I want to jump into another one, so let's look into what our hardware looks like. This is really handy for any type of troubleshooting in the data center. So this is what our POC looks like. So you can see what each of these is. You'll be able to take a look at what the disk is. You can turn on the LEDs, turn off the LEDs. So if you have a disk or you need to remove something or add something, you can highlight it, you can turn on the LED, and then you go and tell your hands and feet to, hey, this is the disk, I've highlighted it, it's dead. Let's go and like pop it in, pop it out for it. Now, that's the hardware side. We can take a look at the table as well. It allows you to see what your cluster looking like. You can see what each of your individual hosts are doing from a CPU usage. So POC 102 is being a little bit more utilized, not much, but a little bit. You can even see what your disks look like for it. So this is getting into that area of, do we need to know this? But we don't from a day-to-day activities. But if we ever needed to, everything's here at a touch of a button for it. One of the parts that I really want to touch upon here before I run out of time is the lifecycle manager. So we'll let this kind of load up. And this is where you're going to start going to see your upgrades, your updates. So I'll give you a couple like how-tos. You're going to need to run an NCC, which is a Nutanix configuration check. which will validate the cluster health before it applies any updates. Because the last thing we want to do is apply updates and your cluster was maybe had a dead disk or something like that. And as we're taking something down, it starts a cascade of failures. So it will run through a number of checks and balances and spit out a report and say, yep, you're good to go on that side. So we'll take a look here. So we'll take a look at what our inventory is. You can do a perform inventory. So again, this is allows you to also, you can do an export of all this so you can see what your asset management cycle as well. You can see what your software and firmware updates are. If I go in here, you'll see that my NCC check again. So I can click this, and then I can view my upgrade plan. I can run an NCC check against it for it. I'm not going to do that just because it's going to start locking me out. You can do upload any bundles for it. So if there's any specific hot fixes that are maybe tailored to your company that you found a bug or something worked and supports like, hey, install this. Here you go. You can upload it directly through here. And then you can configure where, where's the source. So it's going to go to your Nutanix portal. Be able to enable your lifecycle auto inventory on that side. So it makes it very simple for going through and doing your updates. Touched upon some of the expanding clusters and cluster details. So within the settings, we have a couple different options. So you can see your cluster details. So you'll see your UUID. Start to want to do this for if you want to do fully qualified domains, domain names, and setting it all out. I heard there. That's my hook coming in. The last thing here is expanding the cluster. So if you want to go through, you can do a discover hosts manually, or if you have IPv6 multicast enabled, it will automatically find your hosts. And then it's a couple of clicks. They click once, it'll send you to configure your host. It will tell you, do you want to use your current standard image? You say yes, click next again, and it will auto send out that image, provision the net new host that's joining the cluster, add it all in, and then load balance across your environment. And I think that, fortunately, is about time today. I hope that some of you did sign up for the test drive. Speaking of which, my test drive is finally available just in time for me to end it here. But this is what you will look like once you have your test drive. If you do a connection in here, you're going to see that we'll jump into a Prism demo. And there's a couple guides pop up immediately. I'll just show what it's going to look like here. This is what your test demo is going to look like. And you'll be able to jump into the cluster quick access through your AOS, or you can do 90% of the workloads or stuff that I was just showing you today right through this dashboard right here. So you'll see your storage, compute, and that. So feel free to check it out. If there's any questions at all, by all means, feel free to reach out to anyone at CDW. They will, if you have questions, and I can follow up with anyone. So, Kim, I believe we're at time at this.
Nice work, Ryan.
Yes.
Oh,
We're all
thank
good to
you.
go. And it doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat there. So I think we are good.
Yeah. Nice work. That was a good job.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Appreciate it. And if there's any other questions at all, feel free to reach out to myself at CDW. It's ryan.beecham@cdw.ca, or your CDW sales exec. I'd be more than happy to run through any more further conversations.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Oh,
There's one
Serena,
question.
I will post that for you in chat. You might have joined a little bit late. There it is. It is nutanix.com/one-platform. So, and it's going to be the build a private cloud is the first one you're going to want to do, and just enter in your company email address, and you should receive an email in probably the 5 minutes or so. It might take half an hour, maybe less, depending on to create your cluster. And then you'll have full access to walk through any of your demos and just free range access to the environment. Okay.
Perfect.
I don't think there's any other questions here today. So appreciate everyone's time. Hope you enjoy your cocktails. I'm going to go probably make mine here in the next half an hour now that it's past 12. It's an acceptable piece of time for me. But yeah, great. It was great having you here, and hopefully you learned a little bit.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.